And hello, and welcome to another edition of
Come On Down.
This is Rich. I'm Dave. It's great to have you here. This is a show, a podcast that we talk about a lot of things, but a lot about game shows.
Game shows, sure.
Yeah. Rich was a host of how many? Announcer, I'm right.
9 different game shows in my lifetime, 8 network, 1 here in the state of Florida.
Okay, and I'm getting ahead of myself because I was thinking host, because we've got a guy who was a host of a game show here.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, this guy holds a fairly cool record. Held down a hosting job, a game show hosting job for 13 years. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, David Ruprecht. Thank you, David, for being here. All right.
Hello, everybody.
Ah, look at him, smiling face. You haven't changed a bit, man.
Oh, you sugar talking.
David did some time here in St. Petersburg.
No, don't phrase it that way. It sounds like David was in prison here.
Yeah, graduate of Northeast High School in St. Pete, right, David?
That's it. I went to Northeast High. My dad had a church there on 16th Street, Grace Lutheran Church, and that's where I grew up, and I loved growing up in Florida.
Yeah, what do you miss the most?
The beach.
Yeah.
The beach, because I live in Northern California now, and it's beautiful ocean, but there's nothing like the beaches in Florida.
Yeah, it's all cliffs in California, and the water's too cold.
Oh, don't even think about going in.
Right, exactly. His father was also a pastor, and you guys traveled around a lot.
Well, yeah, when I was born in St. Louis, then we went to Winston-Salem, but it ended up early on in St. Pete, and that's where I grew up.
Dave, I'm a fellow PK here, so first of all, it's good to know that you're a part of the fraternity here, but I wanted to ask you, are you aware that Rich, his father, while we were praying in church, Rich's father helped him break into the CBS television studios in Hollywood when he was a young man?
Break in
As in break in.
As in, we broke in. He knew I was a big Price is Right fan, and when I was 18 years old, we broke into CBS in the Price is Right studios and walked around till we got caught, and then
wow.
That's where it all started. Dichotomies in fathers, definitely us.
Yeah, that's something we didn't do there, Dave. We knew better. We were trained better. But, 10 Hail Marys and Rich, all's forgiven for Rich.
Yeah.
God, I hope so.
Methodist and Lutheran, though.
So the Tampa Bay Times did an article on you back in the 90s, and it was very informative. I was happy to have found it on the internet, and it talked about you being discovered by a famous actress. Tell us about that.
Yes, a wonderful woman by the name of Eve Arden, and nowadays people only remember her, if they remember her, from the original movie Grease. She played the principal in that, but she had a long, illustrious movie and television career. And she was out doing theater around the country, Chicago, and I did a show with her, and she and her husband took a liking to me and suggested we tour around, and after we did that for a few months, they suggested I give Hollyweird a try, and I did, and it stuck.
Intern just handed me a note. And he says, we never even said the show that he was the host of, Supermarket Sweep, for crying out loud. I didn't even mention that, did I?
No, I don't know that you did.
So how did you were an actor. You did some appearances on some 50 different television shows in your lifetime. How did you make the jump from, well, Broadway, you did Broadway. How did you make the jump from TV acting to game shows?
It is a big jump. I had always kind of steered away from doing game shows. I had done a reality show called Real People, so I got a lot of interest, but I was an actor, and I steered away from it. But when I got engaged to my wife Patty 33 years ago, she reminded me very forcefully that if we were going to have kids, one of us should have a steady gig. They offered me supermarket sweep, and I met with the producer, and we had a great meeting. It turns out we both, our favorite movie is The Producers with Vivo Mostel and Gene Wilder. And he had been a timpanist with the New York Philharmonic, and I had done musicals my whole life. So we hit it off, and he offered me the job, and 14 years later,
Wow.
I'm certainly glad I took it.
That's amazing. You talked about your wife, Patty. She's a choreographer?
And director, yeah. She's was a choreographer forever. Started dancing, chorus line on Broadway and that kind of stuff. And transitioned into choreography. Very successful. I'd say one of the top 5, 7 in the country. Broadway, television, a lot of international shows. Thanks to her, I've gotten trips to Argentina and Russia and China.
Wow.
How has she helped you with your career, Dave? How has Patty helped you?
Boy, that's a good question.
Has she?
Well, I am not a normal, vain. A lot of actors can be. I'm not saying have to be, but can be a little vain. They can't walk down the street and pass a reflective surface like a store window and without going, oh, how do I do it? I don't walk out, get ready to walk out the house, and she says, Dave, your hair is cold. You can't go out like that. People recognize you. I know, oh yeah, so I'll go back and brush my hair. So that's the biggest way. She's always been very supportive. It's great because we're in different ends, but the same business, so we understand the wacky hours, the traveling, being away from each other. I think our first couple years of marriage, we were apart half the time. Maybe that was why we've lasted 30 years.
I can relate to that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about supermarket sweep if we can. So you landed this gig. Can you take us through the process? How did you get this job?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Like I said, I had a meeting with Al Howard, who was the producer. He has since passed, and we hit it off. And luckily, I had another producer, a man by the name of Joel Stein, who told me the very first day, he said, Dave, you've been an actor your whole life, but this is a different job. You are not the star of this show. The contestants are the star. And your job is to bring out their personality so the audience at home knows whether they want to root for them or against them. And luckily, I got it. And I have since seen some game show hosts who don't get that they are the star of the show. I mean, the best one was Bob Barker. I mean, he showcased the contestants. And I think even Alex Trebek, before he passed, said the same thing. He said, I'm not the star of Jeopardy, it's the contestant. And that's it. We're just there to be, he said, it's like you're throwing a party in your house. You just happen to have a vegetable section in your living room. So think of it.
You know, when we announced that you're going to be on the show, viewers and listeners, podcast listeners, started giving us questions, and you were so great to chime in. We appreciate that. I'm glad you didn't answer any of them online, but we have a few for you as we speak with you today, if you don't mind. And the first one comes from Vahan Nisanian. He's asking, did you actually watch the original 1965 ABC version of the show? Who was that, Bill Malone?
Yes, I wouldn't have come up with that.
Yeah.
My brain.
Good.
You, yeah.
I don't remember much, David, but I remember.
Yeah. Well, game shows, you're going to... Vahan, I had a roommate, Vahan, for a while. Anyway, I got it. Yes, I watched one. Interestingly, that show, because it was at a different time, they couldn't show product, so there was no product placement. So instead of saying, do you think this package of Tide is more expensive than this all cleaning detergent, they had to say, do you think this pound of ground beef is worth more than these 2 heads of lettuce? So it wasn't as much fun. And at the time, they didn't have those great little handheld cameras that our cameraman had.
Right.
They had the big tripods, and so they had the cameraman and one guy behind him carrying this big cable, so he didn't run over it with his tripod. So it was a whole different thing. Ours, by the time we did it, was streamlined, and you could see the contestants. You could run around with the contestants. It was pretty cool.
So how are you at pricing games? Do you shop? Do you know prices?
Interestingly, I am the guy who does the supermarket shopping.
Good, because a little later on, we're going to give you a taste of your own medicine, okay? You're going to play a little supermarket sweep with us. We'll get to that in a little bit.
Okay, Rich.
Dave, let me ask you, why do you think pricing games work? Why are they popular? We look at Price is Right, that did incredibly well. Supermarket Sweep does well. Why do pricing games work?
Because the people at home can play along. They can guess. They can, honestly, the comment I got much more than anything else about Supermarket Sweep is we love to get together with the family at 6 o'clock and yell at our TV set, which is evident. They are playing along. They say, oh no, you idiot, it doesn't cost that, it costs this. And that's why I think people love the pricing games, because nowadays, again, like I said, in the 60s with the original show, it was just the wife who did the job. But in the 90s and early 2000s, two income households, everybody, husbands, wives, kids, everybody's in the supermarket. So everybody has an idea about what stuff costs. And it's surprising that you can play along. It's got to be a show you can play along.
So you did, I'm sorry?
What? No,
Say again?
It's any show. I mean, Wheel. That's why I love Wheel, and I'm okay with Jeopardy, because I can do the first round of Jeopardy because I can play with those and get some of them. Wheel, now there's a game I can play.
Maybe they'll have a celebrity version. You can get on that.
Oh, yes.
Write that up. Have that on my desk in the morning, and I'll turn it in. Hey, you jumped on board with the Lifetime version in 1990. In 99, PAX picked it up. And a viewer wrote in with a great question here.
This is from Chris Lunday. How did production change from Lifetime to PAX? Also, was each show taped at once or in segments? Seems like a lot of sweater changes over the course of a day if it was in segments.
Three great questions, and how it changed from Lifetime to PAX. PAX said no more the Bill Cosby sweaters. We're going to
really?
put me in a shirt and tie and took away what they considered to be the goofier aspects. In the early years, the first 3 years, 4 years, they had a guy in like a giant hot dog costume chasing people. The concept being that if he was coming down your aisle and you were a shopper, you had to reverse course and go the opposite. Well, Pax said, no, the sweaters and the giant hot dogs, we're going to get rid of them. There were 3 questions. That was the big change. I lost my sweaters and updated it, and then, oh shoot, how we shot it.
So a lot of sweater changes, we know about that, but also was each show taped at once or in segments?
We did 6, usually game shows do 5 a day, but my producer, realizing he only paid me and the director by the show, everybody else by the day, he crammed 6 shows in. Yes, and
Typical, yeah.
Because of the nature of the show, we taped the first half where they're standing behind the podium with the buzzers. We did all 6 of those, and then we would take a lunch break, and then we'd come back and do all 6. They would rearrange the set, and because it was not shot in the supermarket, it was shot at NBC Burbank. And then they would shoot where they're running around the supermarket. And the challenge was for my wardrobe person, because that means I'm in one outfit for the first half of the day, six different outfits for show 1. And then at the end, after lunch, we do the same 6 shows in order, but he has to remember what sweater I had, what tie, whatever. And out of over 1,000 shows, only once did a contestant he said, Dave, were you wearing that tie when we did the show? But out of over 1,000, maybe 1,200 shows, have it happen once. It's pretty amazing.
That is amazing. Give me a sense, if you can, what does it take to be a great game show host?
I think, you have to like people. And I love people. I love finding out about them. And like I said, what that producer told me on my first day, he said, you were an actor, you're not a game show host, you are not the star of the show. It's contestants. And luckily I got it. They are the ones you want to showcase, and it's all about them. And you want the audience to relate to them. And that's what makes it fun.
Was it ever hard for you to go from being... I'm sorry, go ahead, Dave. I interrupted.
It's a whole different skill set. Go ahead.
Yeah. Was it ever tough for you to get over, because you grew up thinking, I'm going to be an actor, serious actor, whatever, and I know you jumped around through a lot of different programs, Star Trek, Rockford Files, Three's Company, I think, but was it tough for you to say to yourself, I've become a game show host as opposed to that serious actor that I always dreamed of being?
Yes. Yeah. And I attribute that to my wife, who at the time, we had just gotten engaged, and I was hemming and hawing about doing it. It wasn't that great a deal. It would mean I knew and figured the end of my acting career. And she said, like I said, she told me, she's Italian, so she told me in no uncertain terms, hey, listen, if we're going to get pregnant, one of us should have a steady gig. So
it turned into that, didn't it?
I'm so glad I did, because 14 years later, all of my actor friends had left the business, and because they aged out, and they were back at the family business in Missouri or were teaching someplace, and I was still in show business.
Nice. You mentioned a minute ago that you thought Bob Barker was a good show host and somebody that connected with viewers. I know that I think it was in 2003 you went to see The Price is Right because I found video of it, of you in the audience. Let me blow it up for the fans at home if you don't believe me. There's David Ruprecht right there. What was that experience like, and did you meet Bob?
Oh, sure. Randy West and I, because Randy was the announcer after Johnny Gilbert left after the first couple of seasons. Randy
Right.
West.
And, pardon me, David, but you may remember I told you Randy West was also trying out to be the announcer on The Price is Right.
Right.
He was, so yeah. So he got you into the show.
That's why we went to see it. He was politicking to get your gig. And yeah, I got to meet Bob. He was very gracious. I think during one of the breaks, he introduced me to the audience. And it was a hoot watching. I mean, that show, as opposed to Supermarket Sweep,
Fast.
they do an hour show in 50 minutes.
Right.
And what I loved about Bob Arthur was during the commercial break, he wouldn't go back in his dressing room and have a cup of coffee. He'd stay out there and schmooze with the audience and kibitz, and he was really terrific.
That's probably in some ways his way of kind of getting to know the audience a little bit, I would think, even better.
Absolutely, and he'd use that in the next act, things he found out.
Yeah.
He would.
Did he give you any advice in private time?
No, we didn't have that much time together.
Gotcha.
Dave, let me ask you, you make it look easy when it comes to hosting a game show. How challenging is it really? What all's going behind the scenes that we just don't see?
There is a lot to keep track of, but because everyone in a power position knew that I was not born to this, as Rich was. It was not in my DNA. I had cue cards for everything, and they made it as easy for me as possible. No, not cue card. They had everything on a cue card. After being an actor, I can read a script with the best of them, but all of that ad-libbing the great ones do so well. The interviews were not scripted, so that was my only chance to improvise with the people. But the rest of it, they didn't leave up to chance.
So that kind of leads us to our next viewer question here.
This is Alex Zerl right here. He asked the question, Dave, what was the most stressful part about doing Supermarket Sweep?
Nothing.
Wow,
Nothing.
cool. That's how it should be.
What?
That's how it should be. Nothing stressful.
It was a joy. And again, the producers kept any issues away from me. They had the director and one producer up in the booth, and I'm sure they were pulling their hair out at some of the stupid stuff I would do. And then they had one producer who was very friendly, and he would come down and say, well, why don't we, and it was, I didn't feel any stress whatsoever.
Did you ever have to retake scenes? Did you have to refilm segments?
A couple of times. Yes. A couple of times.
Expound.
What?
Expound on that. Like, what was the situation?
I don't know. It's just, it's fairly, we had a show where it was mothers and daughters, and one of the teenage daughters, I don't know, nutrition or inheritance, but she was very well endowed. And so she did the mini sweep, and when she came running back, having got the item, it was, and so like I normally say, I said, well, congratulations. You won the mini sweep. That's an extra $100. Now, why don't you go over there and catch your breath, and we'll see who else we have playing. So we had to redo that.
Let me ask you, you and Rich have sort of these 3 degrees of separation here, one of which was you've both worked with Drew Carey at one point in your lives. You were on a television show with Drew Carey. Rich was the announcer on The Price is Right with Drew Carey for a little
3
while.
years, yeah.
And yes, Drew was, I did his television show. I played, for some reason or other, he ended up in an insane asylum. And I was one of the inmates. I was an inmate who thought he was Larry King. And my best Larry King impression, talking about, I can't remember the movie dancer, anyway, talking about her gowns, you know, I was doing Larry King. And he was great, terrific. But I have more because I have actually announced The Price is Right. Live.
Right.
All around the country, do that live version. And I have, I started out hosting. And then at one point, the producer said, hey, you want to park yourself in Vegas for 2 years? And some weeks you'll host and some weeks you'll announce. And I said, that sounds like a good gig. And that was a great 2 years. I loved it.
I'll bet. How fun.
It is.
Are you still involved with them at all?
No, I think I aged out of that one. I didn't do anything wrong. You know, it's like my wife has a great line being in show. She said, in show business, they don't throw you a retirement party. They don't give you a gold watch. They just stop calling.
That's exactly
and that happened,
right.
With
Wow.
the television work, and it happened with The Price is Right Live. All of a sudden, and I didn't screw up. I didn't do anything wrong. But all of a sudden, there were no phone calls.
You were in Star Trek not all that long ago.
That's on my resume and on IM Internet Movie Database. I did one voiceover. I was the voice of the Star Trek vehicle number 6. You'll be parking in the docking line.
I'll be darned.
That was it. And yet it shows up, and because Star Trek is so popular, it was a voiceover in a voiceover studio with headphones on, and
But you got Star
right.
Trek on your resume.
and it's on my resume.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's get to some more viewer questions here real quick before we forget about them. Here you go.
This is Edwin Ruskin Nordreich Parker. That's
Wow.
a long name. Did you ever steal anything from the set, like a can of beans or a bag of chips? Come on now, Dave, be honest. I would have taken something like the inflatable bonuses or something after the show ended. What about it, Dave?
Well, first of all, you have to know that everything in the supermarket, we would shoot for about 5 months, 4 or 5 months, and they didn't replace it. So at the end of that 4 or 5 months, as it went on, I mean, the packages of hot dogs had fermented, so they were
You didn't want any of it.
everything had been thrown into a cart and then put back on the shelf and then thrown into a cart. It was maybe the big slabs of cheese. Oh, and the meat. That's another question people always ask. First 2 seasons, we used actual brisket of beef, turkeys, and at the end of the show, every night, they'd have to have 2 production assistants load them into a cart. The one pushed the cart and the other mopping up the dripping blood off the floor behind them. And they did that. And then the next morning, before shooting, those 2 guys would, or gal,
Wow.
come and take them out of the freezer, put them back in the showcase, the deli section or whatever. But after 2 years, they said, there's a better way. So they started doing properly weighted plastic that looked like it, and it weighed the same amount. So if it was a 15-pound turkey with a big piece of plastic that weighed 15 pounds. So
Interesting.
There was none of, you wouldn't want the Twinkies after a while. They had,
Well, they're good forever, right?
what?
Twinkies, they're good forever, right? They're like cockroaches. They'll be here when we're gone.
Not on my show.
Okay, we have another question here. This is from Brenton Burkett. Okay, Brenton writes, do you have any favorite memories from working with Johnny Gilbert on Supermarket Sweep?
Only that he is the nicest, sweetest man. He's just a great guy. You know, with his track record, and actually most of the people I've ever known in show business have been really great people. I've never known any of the jerks. But Johnny was a sweetheart. And I was happy, got to know and become very good friends with Randy West. I wish Johnny had stayed around longer, but I think after the second season he realized it was on cable, and the cable rerun deal was terrible, and that's when he left. But he was a sweet guy, great guy. The first season he stood out there on the set all day long to warm up between the show, because trying to keep the audience up, and it was a long tape day, like I said, doing it in the two sections. And he would be out there at his podium, yada yada, schmoozing. But after a couple of seasons, he said, "Oh, no residuals." But a very
Interesting.
nice man. Randy West is a great friend to this day.
Well, you just, I think, answered our next question.
Do you receive, this is from Rick Fontaine, do you receive residuals for repeats of Supermarket Sweep?
On the original show, no. The cable deal at that time, this is one of the reasons
Oh, it's the call you didn't think you would
It's
get.
the call you've been waiting for, David. Pick it up.
you're calling! The original cable deal was they got 10 reruns for free, which is one of the reasons my agent, my manager, my lawyer told me not to take the show. Like, as I told you, but Patty said, take the show. Now it's been rerunning on Buzzer, on Amazon Prime, and on Netflix for over 4 years, 4.5 years now. And this first time I went through AFTRA, our union, and for 4 years, both Randy and I calling them, and they said, oh yeah, then there was COVID. They used that. Finally, at the beginning of this year, poor mailman shows up at my door with two of those big white post office baskets
Yeah?
filled with individual checks.
Wow.
100. And they put each check in its own envelope for 42 cents. And some
Yeah.
of the checks were 38 cents. Some of them were for 130, you know. But so after 4 years, Randy and I finally started getting some residuals.
Nice.
That's what we're doing our bathroom with.
We can't hear it in the background
No,
there, so the
they're
work
very
crew is
quiet.
staying quiet. Hey, Dave, let me just ask you a quick question. You know, Rich is an absolute hoarder. He took everything he could possibly get, memorabilia from The Price is Right, and his home is decorated with that. As we look into your background here, into your what appears to be maybe an office, or maybe this is another room in your house, what kind of things have you saved over the years?
Nothing from Supermarket Sweep. I wish I had saved some of the sweaters, I can sell them on eBay for a lot of money now.
I'll bet you could.
Yeah. Behind me, no, this way.
Yep. Yes.
There. I've been a member of Rotary for 22 years. I love Rotary. So that's my Southern California club and my Northern California club. Right over my head is a poster of a men's club I belong to, up here called Bohemian Club. And behind me is two Australian hats I got because I went to a Rotary International Convention in Sydney. And then, of course, there's some Elmer's glue and a couple of books.
Before we do more questions, I want to get a chance to play with Dave a little bit.
Let's do it.
Yeah. David, if you don't mind, let's play a little supermarket sweep, okay?
Okay.
You pick up an extra 10 seconds of sweep time if you can answer this.
Yeah.
And these all come from previous episodes of Supermarket Sweep. Healthy Eaters, this one's up your alley. Granola bars by...
Sorry, my phones keep ringing.
See, yeah, I mean, you are a popular guy right now, Dave. We understand the offers are coming in.
They're watching them on YouTube.
I'll call you right back. No, let's see here. Let's get serious.
Okay, Healthy Eaters. This one's up your alley. Granola bars by... Ding, 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 ding. What did he win? Johnny. Very nicely done.
You get a 10-cent residual check there, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to show you three products. Tell us the product that costs more than $6.
That would be the...
10 seconds on the clock, Dave.
Well, I know it's not the Lay's. It's Downy.
Oh,
I was guessing that too.
wow. Okay, last question for you. We're going to show the folks at home and you the name of an item. I'm going to give you 3 clues about that item. First clue, 11 letters, starts with an H, ends with an H.
That's not a clue. I can see that.
All right, here's a clue. It's a root.
Horseradish.
Yes! Ding, 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 ding. Very nicely done. Wow. If the show ever comes back on, you could be a contestant, certainly.
That's impressive. Dave, let me ask you, getting back to your roots and growing up here, your dad was a Lutheran pastor, but what did you learn from that experience? What did growing up as a PK, how did that help you in your career?
Interesting. Because I don't know about your dad, but my dad wanted me to follow in his footsteps, inherit his library, like most fathers. I think they want their son to take over the hardware store or whatever. And I had the same talents. I mean, look at preachers and actors. We both speak in front of large audience. We both have a little wine after the show. But I just didn't have the calling. But I think in my DNA, my dad, he took me aside when I was 7 or something. He was very charismatic, a raconteur. He could tell stories and jokes. Very charismatic guy. And I think, like I said, 7, he said, all right, because I was a shy kid. I'm still an introvert, but I was a shy kid. He said, look up at the people, look them in the eyes, shake their hand, and it was a process. He really trained me to do that, and that got me out of my shell a little bit. But other than that, plus whatever DNA as far as personality and and that kind of stuff. I mostly DNA.
Another viewer question for you, David.
This is from Luke Wade. What was your experience on Match Game, Hollywood Squares Hour, with the legendary Gene Rayburn and John Bauman?
Wow.
The Bowser.
I mean, those are great. You just get up there and take your seat in the square and play around. I love it. I'd love to do more game shows. I love to play games in my real life, charades or a celebrity or even board games. I love Rummy Cube. I just love games. I'm competitive only in that I like to play hard, but whether I win or lose doesn't make any difference to me. But I enjoy games. So.
We had talked previously on other episodes about the first game show I ever did was with Alan Hale Jr., skipper of Gilligan's Island, and then years later I ended up having the same agent as Dawn Wells, and I did the Idaho Film Festival with her. David played a role on an episode of Gilligan's Island, and this viewer wants to know this.
This is from Sean St. Clair. We want to know the details of your appearance as Thurston Howell the Fourth on the Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island.
What was that like?
Great question. Well, what was it like? First of all, it was a dream come true because I grew up on Gilligan's Island, the original. And to walk on that set with the skipper and Mary Ann and Gilligan, and it was a dream come true. Thurston Howell the Fourth. Interesting what happened. It was the third movie, I think, the third TV movie, and obviously the network had promised a movie to the Harlem Globetrotters and the Gilligan's Island people, and they had to make a movie, so they put them together. I mean, where else could you come up with the Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island? And I was up for it, got a couple of callbacks, and I worked my tail off. I remember sitting in my house doing my my rowing machine, watching old episodes of Gilligan's Island and listening to Jim Backus to get that proper sort of Mumsy. We've got a terrible problem here. Because she's my mother, you know.
That's awesome.
What was he like?
It was wonderful. As everyone who is a fan of the show knows, Mr. Thurston Howell III and his wife did not have children, but what happened basically was Jim Backus was too ill at the last minute to do that third TV movie. So rather than rewrite the whole script, they just changed a few lines and made it his son, Thurston Howell IV. And so it was a hoot. It was a hoot. I thought it was going to really launch my career.
Another question for you.
Trent Cagle writes, what was the highest total on Supermarket Sweep when you did the show?
Any idea?
The highest winnings were the people who won cars, obviously. But the highest total, I have no idea. As far as what they got in their cart when they added everything up, no idea.
What was the secret to that show as a contestant? What was the key to winning?
Very good question. Everybody always wants, which is great television, they want to grab the big turkeys and the hams and the brisket, the big things of hamburgers. What they don't understand is that makes your cart very heavy and full, and you have to run and push this heavy cart back to your partner at the checkout stand, get a fresh cart, and run back
Right.
out in the market. One woman in over 1,000 shows stayed in the health and beauty aisle, and you can take 5 of anything. So she took 5 contact lens solution, 5 shampoos, 5 hair coloring products, 5 cold things. You could take, it had to be, so you couldn't take 10 of them. But she stayed in the health and beauty aisle and skunked them. One person.
Wow. Huh.
That's
But
smart.
That's the secret, health and beauty. Because you don't fill up your cart. And it's not, she, I think, had 1 cart, and she skunked them.
And that's the reason why once they went to fake meat, as you mentioned, they had to make it a 17-pound turkey, so all that
yeah.
weight would be there.
And you
Right.
put 5 of those into a cart, you got to go back and get a fresh cart.
And did you give them carts that had the bad wheel?
Never had that.
Daniel Seibert writes, what was the best moment for you hosting Supermarket Sweep?
Anything stand out?
All of them.
All of them.
All of
Bless
them.
your heart. That's cool.
I'm not being nice. I loved every minute of it.
That's cool.
My favorite moments were when people won big. Every show, when the people found the thing to win, you look back on it, like $5,000. But you know, it was compared to what they're giving away now. Whoa! Every time somebody won big, even if it was $5,000, it thrilled me. I'm a sucker. It thrilled me. And if somebody won like a car or a vacation, it just thrilled me. I related or whatever. I loved it.
We have Derek Anderson sends in a question right here, and Derek writes, who were some of your favorite contestants on Supermarket Sweep?
Anybody stand out?
Not specifically. I can just tell you the fun ones. The people who had fun. Had a lot of personality. Like all game shows are, they actually, you wouldn't call it an audition, but they do have to come into the offices and answer questions with the producers. So everybody's got some personality, but there were some people who were just bright, shining lights. I love every time those kind of people were on the show.
Dave, let me ask you, I would watch you on any show again. You're terrific. But let me ask you, what is your day like these days? You say that the calls are few and far between these days. The phone stopped ringing. What do you do in your life?
Well, like I said, I have Rotary International. Rotary. My Rotary Club keeps me fairly busy. I belong to this Bohemian Club, and we do shows. So I'm often working on a show, either a scripted piece, or I'm working up a comedy bit or a song. And I handle our finances and our taxes and our investments, so that keeps me busy. Yeah, I am certainly not bored. I have a dog.
What kind of dog do you have?
What kind of dog?
Be on Friday for 2 weeks, so that's taken up a lot of time and energy.
What kind of dog is it?
He's a little terrier, kind of a rat terrier. He's not a Jack Russell, but he's a sweetheart. His name is Eisenhower. We adopted.
Why Eisenhower? Why did you choose Eisenhower?
We did not choose it. We adopted him.
Gotcha.
So the name was already chosen. You're going to bring in Eisenhower?
Yeah.
Bring in Eisenhower.
Go ahead. This is awesome.
Eisenhower.
Oh, this is great.
You, oh boy.
Come see Daddy.
No, he's not having any of it.
Yeah, well, now,
It's not dinner time.
was Eisenhower, oh, here, I see, is Eisenhower back there? There
Yeah.
we go.
Oh, come on up here.
Oh, bless his heart.
And
Aw.
there's Eisenhower. Good. There's
How
my
old is
boy.
Eisenhower?
He's 5 years old. We adopted him 2 years ago, and he's a sweet beast. This breed, they call them rat terriers. Back during Teddy Roosevelt's White House, the White House was overrun with rats, and they couldn't get rid of them. They heard about this breed in England, and they shipped over a bunch of them, and they got rid of all the rats. So there you go. I looked up his breed, and it says two things. They are bounders, meaning they bounding. When he gets excited, when it's time to go for a walk or dinner, he literally is like on a spring. He jumps, and they're vocal. He's a barker. And doesn't bite, but loves to talk.
Thanks for adopting. That's cool.
Yeah, you were
Or Iowa Head.
Good.
you were involved a little bit with sort of things in politics. That was an interest of yours for a period of time. You still do anything politically at all?
No, I back in 2000, I did a video with the Libertarian candidate, Harry Brown, for president. And I loved what he said about that party. Fiscally responsible, socially tolerant. And that's kind of where I was struggling with, am I conservative, am I liberal? And I spent the whole day, several days with this Harry Brown, and so I became, back in 2000, a libertarian, and at one point, for a number of years, was the executive director of the party in California, and I'm still a libertarian. I love the concept of it, the problem being because it is such a two-party system in America, we can't get anybody elected. We can't get to the debate. But anyway, I'm still libertarian, and I was executive director, in charge of running things and for the California party, raising money and that sort of stuff. But
Drew Carey has said often that he's a libertarian. Did you guys ever talk about that?
who?
Drew Carey?
Drew? Oh, yes, and also Penn and Teller. They're big libertarians. In fact, everybody in their Vegas show, I think, on the crew is libertarian. And they, like I, will show up at conventions and stuff. Penn and Teller, and I think Drew Carey's been to a few. When I say basically what it is, the fiscally responsible, socially tolerant, most people will say, maybe I'm a libertarian. But again, there's that issue of not being able to get folks elected.
Yeah, that's an issue. David, it's such a pleasure spending some time with you. Thanks for sharing
you,
your.
guys.
Yeah, and for us, we would love your phone to start ringing again. We'd love to see more of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I said, this Bohemian Club, I get my acting jollies, I get to perform. I do a lot of faith-based movies with a company in Wisconsin called Salty Earth Pictures, and that again gets I get to act, and so I've got several of those movies. They're in the faith-based area of your Walmart for videos. I love that, doing those. Yeah, I would do anything that offered itself.
Well, that's great. Well, if you could arrange, while you're involved in some faith-based work, for another full immersion baptism for Rich, the first one didn't take.
But it's circumcision still held.
Yes, it did. God, we hope you had a good time with us, because we sure had a good time with you.
Thank you, guys.
So great talking to you, Dave. Thanks so much. We should point out here, if you want it, we've got lots of pictures and different things you didn't get to see if you're just listening. But Facebook.com/ComeOnDownPodcast. Facebook.com/ComeOnDownPodcast. It's a great place to go to see all these pictures, the video, that kind of thing, and to see Dave's beautiful smiling face there. He looks terrific. He does, and it seems like life is good for him. Also, YouTube.com/10 Tampa Bay is where you can watch this. YouTube.com/10 Tampa Bay. We hope you will watch us, and we hope you'll join us next week too for another edition of.
Well, wait before you wrap it up.
Forgot about this. We do have this.
I want to tell you something. Next week we have another special guest. Should I let the cat out of the bag?
I don't know.
I think we should. She was a model on The Price is Right for the longest time, ladies and gentlemen. One of my top 5 favorites, Shane Sterling, is going to be live with us right here on Come On Down next week.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
How long did you work with her?
I worked with her at least 4 or 5 years, before she left the show.
So she knows you pretty well.
She knows me real well. We
Can't wait
partied
to hear what
a
she
lot.
has to say.
We partied a lot. Our wives and her husband and I, Larry Lalonde. Larry's a bona fide rock star with the group Primus. And so we're going to talk about all of that coming up next week.
All right. And that's it for today. We hope you join us next week for another edition of
Come On Down.
Thanks for tuning in to Come On Down with Rich Fields. See more photos and videos mentioned on this episode. Plus, interact with Rich on Facebook at facebook.com/ComeOnDownPodcast or on Twitter at ComeOnDownPod. Have a question for Rich? Use Facebook Messenger to connect on our Come On Down Podcast Facebook page. And remember, new episodes are live every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern.